One of the most amazing stories in the Bible is about how God intervened in the affairs of his people, causing 185,000 soldiers to fall under the breath of a single angel. As unbelievable as it is, this is a real-life event that happened during the 8-year reign of Hezekiah, king of Judah. It's a powerful story of the power of God and his ability to help those who follow him most closely. It all starts with Hezekiah, the once king of Judah. But before we get into this tale, be sure to subscribe to our channel, Bible Tales, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a video from us. Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign in the 3rd year of Hosea, son of Elah, king of Israel. He was 25 years old when he came to power and reigned in Jerusalem for 29 years. He was the grandson of David, and Hezekiah followed all that his grandfather had done, doing what was right in the eyes of the Lord. Hezekiah is one of Judah's most highly regarded kings. He was incredibly loyal to God and followed his commandments. When Hezekiah came to power, he took down all of the high places in Judah. His people were worshipping these high places. Hezekiah knew that God was the only one worthy of their worship, not these high places. The sacred stones were broken, the Asherah poles were taken down, and the bronze serpent Moses had fashioned was destroyed. In Numbers 21, we learned that Moses created a bronze serpent and had it wrapped around a pole, and it happened that whoever was bitten by a snake would live if they gazed upon the bronze serpent. Until then, the Israelites had been worshipping it with incense and called it Neshutan. After reading about the unfaithfulness and horrible deeds of so many kings of Israel and Judah, King Hezekiah was relieved because his reign was a testament to his faithfulness to God's commandments. Hezekiah trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel. Among all the kings of Judah, neither before nor after him was like him. The Lord was with him, so wherever he went, he thrived. However, in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hosea, son of Elah, king of Israel, Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, marched against Samaria and laid siege to it. After 3 years, they took it. But because Hezekiah was faithful to the Lord and did not turn away from him, but kept the commandments that the Lord had given to Moses, the Lord was with him, and he succeeded in everything he undertook. He rebelled against the king of Assyria and stopped serving him. But Samaria was taken in Hezekiah's 6th year. Because the Israelites had not heeded the word of the Lord their God and had violated his covenant, the king of Assyria deported them to Assyria and put them in Halah in Gozan, on the Harbor River, and in the villages of the Medes. Seeing as the capture of Israel was a success, in the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, also invaded and seized all of Judah's fortified cities, prompting Hezekiah, king of Judah, to send a letter to the king of Assyria at Lachish, which reads in 2 Kings 18, verse 14, "I have offended. Return from me. That which thou puttest on me will I bear." And the king of Assyria demanded from Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold as an appeasement. So Hezekiah gave him all the silver found in the temple of the Lord and the treasuries of the royal palace at the time. Hezekiah stripped off the gold with which he had covered the doors and doorposts of the temple of the Lord. He gave it all to the king of Assyria, the successor of Shalmaneser, the conqueror of Israel, against whom Hezekiah would have to fight. But unfortunately for Judah, things did not go as planned, even after paying the ransom. Sennacherib still attacked and overran all of Judah's fortified cities, leaving only Jerusalem. At this point, Hezekiah may have concluded that he had misjudged the situation. He had previously acknowledged to Sennacherib that he had acted improperly. The demand for the ransom was substantial, so Hezekiah sent all of the silver and gold he could find, even taking gold out of the temple. However, things were about to get worse when God surrounded Jerusalem with Assyrians to try Hezekiah's faith and show his people his strength. Sennacherib did not think that Hezekiah's ransom was sufficient and was instead looking for an excuse to attack Jerusalem. Then Hezekiah, the king of Judah, said to the king of Assyria at Lachish, "I have done wrong. Withdraw from me, and I will pay whatever you demand of me." Hezekiah, king of Judah, handed the king of Assyria all the silver that was then discovered in the royal palace's coffers and the temple of the Lord, after the latter demanded 10,000 talents of silver and 1,000 talents of gold from him. Then the king of Assyria sent a delegation of Tartan, the Rabsaris and Rabshakeh, with a sizable army from Lachish to King Hezekiah in Jerusalem. They stopped at the Upper Pool Aqueduct on the way to the Washer's Field and called for the king and Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, who was in charge of the palace of Shebna. Hezekiah also stripped off the gold he had used to cover the doors and doorposts of the temple of the Lord and gave it to the Assyrian king. Shebna, the scribe, and Joah, son of Asaph, the recorder, approached them. Then Rabshakeh said to Hezekiah, "You are depending on Egypt that shattered. If you say to me, 'We trust in the Lord, our God,' isn't he the one whose high places and altars Hezekiah removed, telling Judah and Jerusalem that you must worship before this? A staff with a reed that pierces a man's hand and wounds him if he leans on it. In addition, even though you are depending on Egypt for chariots and horsemen, how can you repel one officer of the lowest rank of my master's servants? Finally, have I come to attack and destroy this place without the Lord's permission? The Lord himself told me to march against this country and destroy it. Now then, make a deal with my lord, the king of Assyria. I will give you 2,000 horses if you can put riders on them." Sennacherib's royal spokesman laid out 4 cases of what he believed to be the facts to make Hezekiah and his people open their gates and surrender. First, Egypt was a useless ally that would not deliver them, which was true. Second, he was certain that the people of Judea had angered their God by destroying the places of worship, namely the high places and forbidden altars that Hezekiah had demolished. Of course, Hezekiah was right to demolish them, but even the king's followers didn't know this. Third, Sennacherib's spokesperson reminded them that Judah's army was too weak to oppose the Assyrian army, notwithstanding Hezekiah's attempt to bribe Assyria. This was also most likely the case. Finally, and for the most bizarre of reasons, he stated that he had received direct instructions from the Lord to invade and destroy that region, effectively stating, "Your God is on my side." This was a falsehood, but to the disheartened citizens of Jerusalem, it might have appeared as though he was correct. After all, their northern neighbors, Samaria and Israel, had been overrun by Assyria. Those same ruthless conquerors were now at their gates. Then Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, Shebna and Joah, addressed Rabshakeh, pleading with him to speak to his servants in Aramaic rather than Hebrew so that the people on the wall would understand. Nonetheless, Rabshakeh stood up and cried in Hebrew, "Hear the word of the great king, the king of Assyria. Do not let Hezekiah deceive you. He cannot deliver you from my hand. Do not let Hezekiah persuade you to trust in the Lord when he says the Lord will surely deliver us this city, which will not be given into the hands of the king of Assyria." To shield the listeners on the wall from the threats, the 3 men requested that the negotiations be held in Aramaic rather than Hebrew. However, the Assyrian spokesman could not care less. He wanted everyone to dread his king's ultimatum, which he delivered to the people in the most disgusting way possible. He then warned the people not to believe Hezekiah's claims that the Lord would intervene to save them, asking, "How long would the people of Judah continue to trust their king in light of this upcoming war? Do not listen to Hezekiah." The Assyrians also made it clear that being deported to a place resembling their own was a requirement of their covenant to bring about a land of grain, new wine, olive groves, and honey. Friends, that is the same way Satan tempts believers with alluring gifts. But sin never lives up to its promises. Listen to Rabshakeh's taunts as he went on. "Hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria. Make an agreement with me by a present, and come out to me, and then eat ye every man of his own vine, and every one of his fig tree, and drink ye every one the waters of his cistern. Hath any of the gods of the nations delivered at all his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Ivah? Have they delivered Samaria out of mine hand? Who are they among all the gods of the countries that have delivered their country out of mine hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of mine hand?" However, the people stayed hushed and didn't say anything to him since the king had ordered them to. Then Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, who was in control of the palace Shebna, with their clothing ripped, the scribe, and Joah, son of Asaph the recorder, went to Hezekiah and brought everything said by Rabshakeh before him. After hearing Rabshakeh's words, Hezekiah's troops were so furious after this incident that they ran back to the king, their clothing ripped with agony. Upon hearing this, King Hezekiah tore off his garments, wrapped himself in sackcloth, and entered the Lord's sanctuary. He then sent Eliakim, the royal attendant, to the people with these words, "Thus saith Hezekiah, this day is a day of trouble and of rebuke and blasphemy, for the children are come to the birth, and there is not strength to bring forth. It may be the Lord thy God will hear all the words of Rabshakeh, whom the king of Assyria, his master, hath sent to reproach the living God, and will reprove the words which the Lord thy God hath heard. Wherefore, lift up thy prayer for the remnant that are left." When King Hezekiah heard the report, he tore his clothes and fought. He must have wondered how such a terrible change had occurred. After all, he had been obedient to God's renewed worship in Judah, followed the Lord's instructions, and prospered previously due to God's provision. However, God was definitely silent at that time. This serves as a reminder that faithfulness to God does not always protect us from adversity, but prepares us for those challenges. You will be better equipped to face problems and suffering if you live your life from a divine perspective, trusting Him in both good and bad times. One notable thing Hezekiah did was enter the temple of the Lord to worship, despite his anguish. He also did something that many of his predecessors had done. He sent a delegation covered in sackcloth to seek a word from the Lord through the prophet Isaiah. They explained the terrible situation of Judah to the prophet of God and informed him that the Assyrian chief had come to mock the living God. So the servants of King Hezekiah went to Isaiah, and Isaiah said to them what is described in 2 Kings 19, verses 6 to 7. "Thus shall ye say to your master, Thus saith the Lord, Be not afraid of the words which thou hast heard, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I will send a blast upon him, and he shall hear a rumor, and shall return to his own land. And I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. And so it happened that King Sennacherib returned to his land instead of defeating Jerusalem, and died by the sword. After learning that the king of Assyria had left Lachish and was fighting against Libnah, he heard that Tirhakah, king of Ethiopia, was coming to fight him. It so happened that while encamped at Jerusalem, Sennacherib's spokesman received news that the king had withdrawn from Lachish to fight at Libnah. Sennacherib learned that the king of Cush was preparing to fight him, which diverted his attention from Jerusalem. Hezekiah had taken Sennacherib's letter to the temple and prayed, asking God to save them and show his power over the nation's false gods. As confirmation, Isaiah, the son of Amos, sent a message to Hezekiah. "The Lord says, 'The daughter of Zion despises you, Sennacherib. Whom have you insulted? Against the Holy One of Israel. You boasted of your conquests, but I ordained them long ago. I will put a hook in your nose and make you return the way you came." Through Isaiah's prophecy, God reassured Hezekiah that Jerusalem would survive. This year you will eat what grows by itself. Next year, what springs from that. In the third year, sow and reap, plant vineyards and eat their fruit. A remnant will survive, for the zeal of the Lord will accomplish this. The king of Assyria will not enter this city or shoot an arrow here. I will defend and save this city for my sake and for David's sake. That night, the angel of the Lord killed 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. Sennacherib returned to Nineveh. While worshipping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons Adramelech and Sharezer killed him. His son Esarhaddon succeeded him. The Lord's single blow delivered Hezekiah. Sennacherib, who had challenged the Lord, was killed by his own sons while worshipping his God, who could not protect him. This story shows us that God's power is overwhelming. If he wants, he can influence the fate of thousands with the snap of his fingers. It also shows the miracles that can happen to us when we respect him, follow his direction, and live our lives close to him. He can help us overcome even the most significant of obstacles. Before we end, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.